Hello everyone, it's Pete Los again, breaking down my beat called The Beatle. This is the last beat, I believe, on my To the Mountains to Pray beat tape, and it's another Dean Blunt Mike type beat, simple sampled beat with some cool drums. So let's hear it. Let's hear it. I'm gonna skip around a bit here. Brought in another vocal chop here from the same sample. We'll dive into it. And then we got another part here. So just a synth part, kind of round out the second half of the beat, bring some new things in. So yeah, that's the general vibe. I do have an outro here that I change up a few things on, but let's start with the music some here. So on the bus, we just have a channel strip. Looks like we're just boosting some high mids, and that's about it. Yeah, we're also boosting the in about 5 dBs, but then also cutting it on the output just to hit the console strip a little bit harder. In addition to that high mid boost. For the tracks going into that, the main sample that we have playing throughout the beat is this one here. Using Serato sample to chop it up, tune it down 3 semitones to A minor, and then we sped it up quite a bit. The original sample BPM is about 120, it looks like, and the world is a ghetto is the sample chop or sample. Serato's very nice because now with their recent big update, probably a year old about now, you can break out the different elements of the sample. So I broke out the drums. Here's what some of the chops sound like. Someone has a home, sweet and all, that is true, that for me and for you. So a lot of vocals throughout the beat, but in the beginning we get these cool. So yeah, this is the main part of the sample playing, right? Repeating over that and then throwing in that there. Did put a little bit of a filter on all the samples here just to tone out some of those highs. Let me just solo it here one more time. So even though I cut out the drums, you can still hear them, but it's very nice because it's just like the overheads. It's the brighter part of the drum, so it gave me some freedom to do my own kicks and whatnot. So I'll just add the drums back just to see how that sounds. So really not a huge difference. I bet I could have left them in. Yeah, the kick doesn't get too crazy, but I was happy with the texture I still got when I took out the drums. So it just provides a nice layer for my the hi-hats that I add later. Excuse me. All right, so that's the main sample. Have a blank EQ, some OTT. I wish I was more comfortable with this plugin. It can be very heavy at times, and I feel like sometimes I will prefer other plugins than this to make something really fat, but it worked out in this case. And then I added this custom, I guess, Effectrix pattern. So it has a lot of different effects on it, but it just makes it sound crappier, honestly, in a good way. So in lieu of doing maybe a cassette plug-in or a RC20 to kind of degrade the sound, make it sound older, went with this, and then leaned on just the sample itself to bring that character. And OTT to kind of exaggerate it too, but even here we're only at a 50% mix on the Effectrix. So, all right. Later on, after 16 bars, we do add this cool vocal chop. Right. So another flat EQ. Just in case I want to edit anything. That's just on my template that I use. And then we really drove the crap out of this. So this is without decapitator. So it's still without. But we have drive at 10. We are pulling the mix back to 50%, but still pretty heavy-handed. Yeah, it really just kind of fattens out that first note, makes it sound. It just removes the dynamics of it, right? It just squashes the hell out of it, which I thought was a good way to cut through the original sample. And I think I said it earlier, but this is from the same sample, but this time I just cut out the melody. This key symbol here, I think, is it tries to cover most melodic elements, and then the bass here. So I just left the vocal. And it does a really good job of just isolating vocals. Like, I don't really hear the drums at all. And when especially because it's layered on top of different chops from the same sample, when I add it, it just sounds natural, right? I didn't have to do too much to make it fit into the beat, because it was kind of always meant to belong there, really. So, cool trick I use a lot with these beats is just trying to get the most out of the sample, especially if you have one with vocals. You can use Serato sample to, really pick what type of, when and where you want to bring your vocals in, but still have that great underlying sample for you to add drums to that's not too cluttered, because you have the ability to remove your drums or your bass in most cases. So one more time, this is what it sounds like. We do have it pretty quiet relative to the main sample, but it still finds its place. So some more decapitator. Looks like it's the same setting as the one before. OTT as well. Effectrix, same preset, but then we just add some chorus to get that width. I've used this in a ton of beats. This is the default setting, just with the 2 style turned on here. So let's just hear it with the main sample again. And if I remove the chorus, it doesn't fit the way I want it to. So I think that chorus there is that last 20% to make it perfect. So yeah, the last, I guess, unique part of the music here is this synth down here. I think that I got this from my mini log, my Korg mini log. It was around the time that I got this and I made this beat. So just something simple, but I do like these drony tones. We're actually using the EQ this time, just high frequencies, just really just texture. And then some effect rack. We just got some width and some echo. Yeah, just to make it feel less like just a simple saw wave, right? Same effectrix loop. Probably could have put it on the sum here, but whatever. And then RC20 to round it out. Space, distortion, wobble. Using this width here to add, using the stereo button to add the width that I love that that you can get out of this RC20. So fans it up and also just adds that vintage thing to it, but quickly. And that's what RC20 is great for. We are cutting off quite a bit of the highs, and I think that's doing a lot of the work here too. And then last we just have the outro here, which is just different chops again, but just vocals. So sometimes it's cool to use the lyrics to put a message in there, I guess. I don't know. So another probably mini log sound here. Just clean sound does the job. Echo, delay, panning, right? More echo and then some compression. So that's just a preset there, but just things to make a simple synth into something you actually want to listen to. Alright, and then we have this here. Yeah, so this is that vocal phrase that I thought would be cool to end it on. Happiness. Alright, cool. So that's the music sum. We do have it going to a reverb here, a nice little hollow track, but we're getting long-winded. Let's get into the drums. On the drum bus, we have another 9000 series SSL channel strip, cutting out some of those lows, cutting out some of the highs here, and then boosting the low mids, boosting the lows, and then adding some input gain just to hit the console harder, just like we did on the music sum. Filter Freak, I've been liking this a lot lately to add just the lo-fi kind of vibe to my drums, cutting out some of those highs, but also with this mod feature here, you can cut the highs based on the input going into this plugin, so it moves that upper end filter. The harder you hit it, the more open the filter is. So if you have dynamic drums, it's a way to turn some simple hi-hats into something that moves a little bit. And then some cassette. We got some cassette going. Cool. Let's get into the drums. We got this couple different chops of a drum loop I found. Just adding some reverb. So when I'm chopping up the drums, especially with the Q sampler, I don't really do it in this beat too much, but sometimes it's good to separate the kick and the snare and the hat into different tracks. In this one, we kept it all together, and then kind of similar to how we set up the Filter Freak to modulate the low pass, we have it here as well. So input sensitive cutoff. We're driving a bit with the built-in filter. These filters aren't the greatest, but if I want to add some quick grit, I will. And then the one last thing to call out here too is that I don't have flex on, so this beat is playing at it's not playing at a BPM adjusted BPM. but it will change the timing when I change the coarse pitch here. So if I'm trying to find some more unique pockets with my drums, I'll turn the flex off and then lay down, my drum pattern, get, my kicks and snares where I want them, and then I'll mess around with this coarse pitch here to either speed up or slow down the chops to bring in more of the hi-hats that tend to follow a kick or a snare. So this is how it sounds with it just slowed down the way the final beat has it. Right. But if I speed it up to the normal pitch, those kicks fall on top of each other, so it's a little awkward. So I'm kind of killing two birds with one stone. I'm pitching it down, the drums down, which I think generally sounds good. And then I'm also changing the rhythm. So doing a lot with just one little knob there. All right, the next drum track we have is just a snare layer. Super simple. Can hardly hear it, but it definitely adds some punch, and especially with some of the cutouts I have. It brings it out even more, right? On to the next snare. So this is just on the fours. So kind of like more of a tonal snare. So with the two layered snares, and then with the loop. So barely perceivable, but if I cut these out, it just, with my snare, especially with these beats, there's a certain splat sound that I try to go for, and I think adding snare layers is the best way to do that. And then lastly, I think this is just a kick, yeah. Just a kick on the ones and threes. Another pretty imperceivable layer. I find myself doing this quite a bit for beats that I have a drum break for. I tend to treat the drum breaks pretty heavily with effects, and after doing that, the low end gets a little less clear. So I remedy that with just a clean kick that doesn't have a lot of high end, just to add that clean punch. And I think it sounds even better when you don't layer it for every kick, right? So it just hits on the main beats here, 1 and 3. All right, so that's the drums. On the mix, keeping it pretty simple, some soothe. I like this can opener preset sometimes if I feel like my mix is getting pretty muddy. Just that gross kind of 200 to 1K range. Some decimort using the MP60 preset, and then toning back the low pass, make it sound more gritty. And then black box. Yep, we've seen this preset before. Actually, this is the mix opener. Usually I go for the massive bus, but this one has some good lift. I'll turn it off. It's also going to be quiet. I'll put it matching right now. So even though it gets louder, but I had the room to make it louder, so I did. And but yeah, I just use that to add some width. Yeah, 120%, and then it is set up in the mid side mode, so the top rack here treats all your mid signals, lower end treats all your sides. We're adding more saturation on the sides than we are in the mid, so it feels like your head is getting hugged by some nice warm sounds. So I think. Anyways, lastly we have the God particle, cutting back some of the lows and then just adding some of this God amount, whatever potential setting they give it, because this does add some nice lift again, some more saturation. But yeah, that is the Beatle. Hope you like it. If there's any beats that I posted that you want to see breakdowns for, let me know, and I will break those down next. I hope throughout these videos, you can kind of see the little tricks I use here and there to make simple things sound more interesting. I think that's the main thing I try to do. Right? Sounds sound pretty dull when they're dry, but I have a toolbox of things I can use to make them sound more interesting, and that's what I'm trying to show in these videos. So with that, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, thank you.